Because Dark Souls wasn't hard enough, I challenged all of you to gather as many souls as you could in 1 hour from a brand new game. Last month was the 11th anniversary of Dark Souls, and to celebrate, I'm giving $1,100 to whoever can collect the most souls in 1 hour. This challenge was far from easy. Dark Souls has some of the most infamous level design, and as a result, this speedrun was full of tense moments. Before we begin, I'll be giving away $50 randomly to 3 of you who comment below describing your first experience with a Souls game. Most people's experience is pretty traumatic, so I'm really looking forward to reading all of yours. Speaking of traumatic, every second a room bear dies. This video is sponsored by Surfshark, and they are doing everything they can to help. Surfshark has teamed up with the SLF, and they've agreed to donate 1,000 runes for every person who clicks my link in the description and signs up for Surfshark. Doing so means adopting your very own room bear, and if that wasn't enough, you can also use Surfshark to switch your IP address so you can watch Netflix shows in other countries with your new best friend. And you can do so knowing that you and your furry friend are protected, because Surfshark encrypts all of the data transferred between your devices and the internet. Use the code in the description for a whopping 83% off of your purchase, and they'll even throw in 3 extra months for free. This is your chance to make a difference. So click the link in God, how does Vati do that voice all the time? I have no idea. Oldschool starts off his run as a hunter, choosing the Master Key as his starting gift, and this will come in handy for accessing some key areas early on. Sorry about that. Heading through the asylum eventually brings him to a staircase where he narrowly avoids this boulder, and talking to Oscar is going to reward him with 5 Estus flasks and 1 key to the 2nd floor. After taking care of the asylum demon, Oldschool finally breaks out, and that's when he's going to make his way toward the undead Berg. Although it's still early, these enemies are very dangerous and will literally throw themselves at you. Oldschool presses on though, and as he makes his way through this area, he's going to open this door, and after that close call, Oldschool loots the pine resin from within this chest, and some very well placed jumps help him avoid this flaming barrel. From there, he picks up some twinkling titanite off a lizard hiding in the tower nearby, and then he does his best to avoid Havel on his way into Darkroot Basin. Iron U's run starts off with a Master Key as well, and after breezing through the asylum, rather than heading up into the undead Berg, he makes his way down into the Valley of the Drakes instead. While he's here, he picks up a few souls and avoids several drakes on his way to this ladder, which takes him to the red Tearstone ring. This ring gives its user a massive 50% boost in damage, but the trade-off is that you only get it when you're below 20% health, and this is a pretty clear indicator that Iron U's run is about to get really dangerous really fast. After grabbing the ring, Iron U escapes the valley and takes this elevator up into the Darkroot Basin, where he finds 2 very important items. The first is the Grasscrest Shield, which will increase all stamina regeneration by about 22%, but the second comes from the Black Knight he cheeses, which has a 30% chance of dropping the best weapon in the game, the Black Knight Halberd. He can't equip it yet though, he still needs at least 22 strength and 18 dex before he can do so. On his way out of the basin, he collects some titanite from this lizard and then enters the Undead Parish, where he's going to buy the upgrade kits from Andre. And as he enters the bell tower nearby, there is a lot that can go wrong here. First of all, he needs to be at 20% health so he can use the red Tearstone ring in the gargoyle fight. And the best way to get there is to survive this knight's attack, which it doesn't always go for. On his way into the next room, a knight on the staircase is determined to end his run, but his last attack creates enough space for him to squeeze by. This room can be a disaster if any of the hollows block your path, because that gives the channeler a chance to snipe you. Fortunately though, none of that happens, and Iron U safely challenges the gargoyles with 20% health and no room for mistakes. While he's in the basin, Oldschool picks up a soul, and then he's going to grab the Grasscrest Shield and BKH as well, only his time is a little slower since he took that detour through the Undead Berg for the extra Titanite. We'll have to see if that was worth it. He also collects some Titanite from this lizard on his way into the bell tower, where he has a much easier time than Iron U did. He doesn't need to get hit by the knight because he's not using the red Tearstone ring, and the other knight on the stairs is kind enough to let him by after just one attack. The hollows in the room nearby are also pretty friendly. And after surviving these guys, Oldsku finds himself challenging the gargoyles at pretty much full HP. While this does sound ideal, the fact that he's missing out on that 50% damage boost means that the fight is going to last that much longer, and of course the longer it goes on, the more that can go wrong. After cutting off the first gargoyle's tail, Oldsku's strategy is to just keep circling it until it goes down, and once it finally does, the second one spawns in with half HP. This one mostly just breathes fire though, which is perfect because now that it's standing still, Oldsku can make short work of it. Despite having a higher damage output, Iron-U's fight is still pretty shaky. He goes straight for the gargoyle's tail, and once he gets the axe, he immediately two-hands it for the extra damage. He's doing his best to kill the gargoyle before the second one joins in, but when the fight's taking closer to the edge, he almost rolls right off. That's when the second one starts breathing fire, and this is usually where the fight goes south for a lot of runners. Iron-U pulls it together nicely though, and you can see that damage from his ring is really starting to add up. After defeating the gargoyles, Iron-U climbs the tower and rings the bell before buying a homeward bone and then giving Oswald exactly what he deserves. With the easy part out of the way, Iron-U's gonna warp back into the undead parish where he levels up a bit, and then he takes the elevator back up to Firelink. While he's here, he convinces Lautrec to let him borrow his Ring of Favor, and now that he has the extra health and stamina, Iron-U sets a course for the Dark Souls equivalent of Australia, Blighttown. After killing Oswald and Lautrec as well, Oldsku enters Blighttown on a slightly faster pace than Iron-U, mostly due to his luck in the gargoyle fight and the fact that he hasn't stopped by Andre yet. They both jump down this hill, and hugging the cliff brings them to this makeshift elevator where they're gonna use the time to heal up before plunging into this pool of poison. After narrowly avoiding some fresh dung, both speedrunners enter the boss arena within a minute of each other. Iron-U's fight doesn't have the best RNG, but that's okay because he does have the best weapon, and this is when we really start to see just how fast and strong the halberd is. I probably should have banned this. There really isn't much to discuss here though. Oldsku's fight is slightly faster than Iron-U's, and following a few swings of his halberd, Quelaag goes down in no time. After Quelaag, Oldsku talks to Andre so he can finally upgrade his weapon and level up, but Iron-U decides to get a head start on his next destination instead, and this place is a death trap. So deadly in fact that he doesn't even get a chance to enter the fortress before this happens. Once he does make it in, Iron-U's strategy is to just hold forward and hope for the best, not stopping for a single pendulum. Before long, he finds himself at the rooftop of the fortress challenging the Iron Golem with about 10% of his health remaining, and this is an extremely dangerous situation. Iron-U's gonna have to play perfectly if he wants to make it out of this one alive. Just kidding, this fight is a joke. Oldsku's trip into Sin's fortress is much less eventful than Iron-U's, picking up the same souls near the entrance and opting to quit out instead. His Iron Golem fight is just as hilarious, and without much trouble, both speedrunners find themselves in Anne Orlando where they're about to be truly tested. Not long after entering the city, they find themselves at the Flying Buttresses where they attempt some nerve-wracking jumps. Upon landing them, they're taken to this catwalk where one wrong step could mean losing out on $1,000. Both challengers successfully cross over into the fog wall, and the giant elevator is going to eventually take them to this bonfire where Iron-U spends some time upgrading his weapon. Heading back up the elevator and following the path leads to this horde of Batwing demons, and this is where things start to get bad. Oldsku heads up the first buttress with his camera focused behind him so he can make sure he rolls any projectiles. So far so good. He takes on the second buttress and everything is going according to plan, right up until Iron-U's first buttress has slightly more projectiles, but a well-placed roll keeps him healthy. Heading into the second one, he decides to wait a bit so he can get a good arrow cycle, and right before the closest knight can fire an arrow, he quits out to reset the aggression. Once he loads back in, he's able to run around the knight, and as soon as he does, it switches to close combat, which is actually a lot safer, and that's going to allow him to pick up this valuable item, which will reward him with 10,000 souls when consumed. With that knight down, the other one is significantly less dangerous, and jumping onto this balcony will eventually take him to this room where he's going to intentionally take fall damage to set up the RTSR ring. Ornstein and Smo is an incredibly luck-driven fight. You really want Ornstein to open up with a dash attack because it makes isolating him a lot easier. If he doesn't, then you're more than likely going to have to deal with both of them at the same time. The fact that Iron Yu is so low on HP means that he has no room for error, and there are a lot of things that can go wrong here. If Smo goes for the shovel attack at close range, there's a really good chance that you just lose because dodging that attack reliably is not an easy thing to do. After dodging his butt slam, Iron Yu is able to finish off the duo in just 33 seconds, a very respectable time. Olsku immediately quits out. When he loads back in, he's able to successfully sidestep the knight, and rather than baiting the other one into falling off, he just kills it himself. When he challenges Ornstein and Smo, he's lucky enough to get the dash attack too, but unfortunately he's unable to kill Ornstein before Smo joins the fight. He backs off to dodge Smo's attack, and this is scary. He can't see Ornstein because he's hiding behind Smo, and if Ornstein threw a lightning spear there, then Olsku wouldn't have been able to react. Once Ornstein goes down, all that's left is Super Smo, and if you're wondering why they always save Smo for last, it's because of what I mentioned earlier. Ornstein is a lot easier to isolate, but also Super Ornstein has a tendency to jump around, which can waste a lot of time. No spoilers, but I did speak to the runners after the race, and both of them told me that Ornstein and Smo were one of the most challenging parts of the run. What you're watching here is the result of countless attempts. Despite the challenges though, both runners push forward into the throne room, and it's here where we discover why they chose the Hunter class. It's because it's the only one that starts off with a bow, and that allows them to take out the channel's namesake so they can get the Lord Vessel and start warping between bonfires. After getting the Lord Vessel, Olsku and Iron Yu warp back to Firelink, where they both descend into the catacombs where everything is either dead or trying to kill you. Both of them take two slightly different paths, with Olsku heading towards Vamos and Iron Yu challenging Pinwheel. Pinwheel is the easiest boss in the game. So easy, in fact, that he doesn't even bother activating the red Tearstone ring. Defeating Pinwheel rewards Iron Yu with 15,000 souls, and that's when he does the unthinkable. Most people enter this area with some form of light, whether that's by spell or lantern, but in the interest of time, Iron Yu navigates through this entire area in pitch black darkness, avoiding several deadly falls along the way. This trip is definitely worth it though, because eventually he comes across the Silver Serpent Ring, and this ring increases all souls obtained from fallen enemies by 20%. When Olsku visits Vamos, after upgrading his weapon to +4, he does something really unexpected and buys 74 homeward bones. While he's in the area, Olsku also takes on Pinwheel, and his fight is not as easy. Olsku is also insane, skillfully navigating through the Tome of the Giants in complete darkness until he arrives at the Silver Serpent Ring 2. And this is where both runs start to diverge. Olsku's gonna stop at a nearby bonfire and then warp back into the Undead Parish because he needs one more thing from Andre. He doesn't want to pay for it though, so he's gonna do this instead. Rather than stopping at that bonfire, Iron Yu drops down and challenges Paladin Leroy instead, and killing him rewards Iron Yu with a whopping 25,000 souls. In a cave nearby is a Titanite lizard, and further in are 2 souls of a hero which are guarded by several weaker Pinwheel clones. Blocking their attacks lets Iron Yu survive long enough to make it to the boss arena, and this fight is insane. Gravelord Nito's fight is far from a skeleton crew. In fact, he has several in his arena, and managing them throughout the fight is really difficult. After knocking down the smaller ones, Iron Yu takes the opportunity to get some damage in on Nito himself. If you've played this game before though, then you know that these skeletons don't give up. Olsku barely escapes Andre with his life, and what he tried to go for there is a little trick where you attack Andre from a specific position and he won't see you. That way you can easily kill him with 2 R2s. Unfortunately, Andre had his glasses on, but Olsku recovers nicely, looting the Crest of Artorias anyway. This item's gonna give him access into the forest where he takes the stone armor from this chest, and that's when he challenges Sif. His strategy versus Sif is to stay as close to her as possible because doing so will cause most of her attacks to miss. Standing directly under her and using the halberd to overwhelm Sif with R1s is a very effective way to win this fight. When it's all said and done, Old-School comes up to the 30-minute mark with about 163,000 souls to his name, a far cry from the 900,000 in this video's title. Iron Yu has the reflexes of a god. Realizing that the skeleton had gotten the best of him, he quits out to avoid losing his souls, and then he challenges Nito again for round 2. In this fight, it's best to let Nito come to you because there are giant skeletons just lurking in the corners of the room and you do not want to aggro them. This attempt is already going a lot better than the previous one. Iron Yu is doing a fantastic job of dodging Nito, attacking him, and keeping the skeletons down. Once he gets Nito to about half HP, he realizes that he's about to explode and runs away so he doesn't die along with the skeletons. But when he comes back in, he messes up and gets caught by this giant orange sword. That's when he starts to panic. He's aggroed the giant skeletons. What a crazy fight. Iron Yu receives 72,000 souls for his trouble, and now that he's back in Firelink, he heads back to Blighttown of all places. We'll have to see what he has planned. Now that Old-School's defeated Sif, he warps back to the Tome of the Giants, takes out Paladin Leroy, picks up the same souls guarded by the Pinwheels, and challenges Gravelord Nito, only his strategy is much different. Rather than going through the trouble of trying to dodge the smaller skeletons, Old-School just equips the stone armor he found in the forest and stands there tanking their attacks the entire time while he focuses on Nito. Since Nito has friendly fire on versus his own skeletons, most of his attacks will just knock them away, meaning all Old-School needs to do is look out for the orange sword or the explosion. Without much trouble, Old-School defeats Nito in a fraction of the time that Iron Yu did. At the 34-minute mark, Old-School is sitting at 318,000 souls, and now he's going to warp back to Anor Londo and take on Gwendolyn. This fight is more annoying than anything, but it's definitely worth doing because of the 48,000 souls that you get once it's over. After breezing through Blighttown again, Iron Yu returns to Quelaag's domain, and further in he's taken to Demon Ruins where he challenges the Ceaseless Discharge. This fight is fairly straightforward, and Iron Yu's strategy is to patiently bait the boss into going for this attack over and over again. Defeating him gives Iron Yu access to the lower parts of the ruins, and that's when he's going to pick up some more souls before killing Invader Kirk. Deeper into the ruins he finds even more souls, and then he's going to jump off this ledge, once again intentionally taking fall damage so he can activate the red Tearstone ring for his next fight, the Demon Fire Sage. Nothing noteworthy happens in this fight, and after repeatedly punishing its butt slam, Iron Yu finds himself in the Centipede Demon's Lair. Despite his low HP and the deadly arena he's fighting in, Iron Yu looks really comfortable here, opting to stay directly under the demon for the majority of the fight. Following a short scavenger hunt for various souls in the area, Iron Yu puts down Kirk one more time before initiating a fight with the Bed of Chaos. Normally, this fight requires you to destroy 2 glowing orbs before you can reach the heart of the boss, but thanks to a strategy known as the Toki Bomb, Iron Yu can throw 2 precise fire bombs that reach the glowing orbs and save him a little over a minute. This brings Iron Yu up to about 500,000 souls with only 15 minutes remaining. With Gwendolyn down, Old-School warps back to the Tome of the Giants, and at this point we finally understand why he bought the 74 Homeward Bones. Old-School is planning to farm giant skeletons in complete darkness for 25 minutes straight. What's worse is that these skeletons deal about 400 damage with every hit, meaning that one mistake could result in Old-School losing everything. At the 45-minute mark, Old-School and Iron-U are pretty much tied in souls. Let's find out who wins the 1000. Iron-U heads back to Firelink, where he curls up like a ball in this nest so that he can return to where it all started. Diving deeper into the asylum brings him to the hidden Stray Demon underneath, and the height of the fall is perfect because it brings him right into Red Tearstone range. Just like the others, getting close to this demon prompts it to use the Butt Slam, and this move has a lot of cooldown, so it's definitely what you want to see, and that allows Iron-U to get in about 2 or 3 attacks. 24,000 souls later, Iron-U grabs the doll off of this body, and then he gives us a proper demonstration of what the Andre fight is supposed to look like. Now that he has the crest of Artorias, he takes a page out of Old-School's book and defeats Sif and Gwendolyn before entering the Painted World. Meanwhile, in the Tome of the Giants, Old-School has entered what appears to be a meditative flow state, killing each skeleton one after another until he's down to just 22 homeward bones. His soul count is climbing rapidly, but he is showing some signs of weakness. Time will tell if he can keep it together. In the Painted World, Iron-U's first stop is this disgusting amalgamation of hollows, and killing them all will reward him with about 20,000 souls. He struggles with some torch-wielding hollows in the area, but after recollecting himself, he loots 3 Proud Knight souls before getting invaded by King Jeremiah, who kindly donates 36,000 souls to his cause. Climbing this staircase takes Iron-U to this bridge, and with only about 5 minutes left in his run, he needs to set up the Red Tearstone ring so that his next fight can go as quickly as possible. These 2 hollows are perfect for setting it up, but when things don't go as expected, Iron-U starts to freak out. On his way back, he farms these hollows again to try and recuperate some of his souls, and his second attempt at the bridge goes much more smoothly, and his fight versus Priscilla is flawless. After defeating her, he warps back to the hollow farm and starts crushing soul packets left, right, and center. Once they're all gone, both runners spend the last moments of their runs farming. In the end, Old-School came out on top, but it could have easily gone either way. While Iron-U's 2 deaths in his Nito fight finally caught up with him, if Old-School had slipped up at any point during his giant skeleton farm, then he could have easily died too. That's pretty much it for this one though. Go check out both runners. You can find links to their channels and their original runs in the description below.